I'll tell you. And they occur in the first reading of the Mass today, in the revelation in the burning bush, or through the burning bush, to Moses of God, who rejects any other name except I am. And when these words are spoken by God from the burning bush, communicated, and of course in the words of Jesus in the Gospel, when he says, I am, there is a resonance and a depth of revelation. We use the words I am all the time, of course, in daily life. I am, here is my passport, and my ID number, here's my password. I am feeling a certain way, or I am a certain kind of person. Or I am president, or I am a junior executive, or I am a doctor, or I am whoever we identify with. The danger of this, of course, that's ordinary language, but the danger is that it makes us assume that we are in the same way that God is. And from the ego's point of view, of course, that's how it should be. I am and God is, and therefore I can see God, or I can think about God, or I can tell you what God is like, because I happen to know a little bit better than you what God wants and what his morality is. And the mystical philosophy exposes this pride of the ego to say I am, that I am anything, really. For one thing, we know how easily and quickly we can change. Simone Weil said, we participate in the creation of the world by decreating ourselves. We participate in the creating of the world through the decreation of ourselves. And this is not destructive. To decreate, in this sense, that she's using, is not destroying ourselves, putting ourselves down, abasing ourselves, quite the reverse. We may fear that it feels like destruction, but that's because we want to affirm ourselves, to consolidate ourselves, to build our fortresses, to build our places of security, our illusions of security. We don't want to lose ourselves. And yet that is the heart of reality, of the human reality. Simone Weil says, even God had to renounce himself in order to make space for something that was not God, for creation, as we call it. It's a very ancient idea that there's some kind of breathing, was it breathing in or breathing out, but there's some creating of space, some kind of letting go of God's own being in order for anything else to exist. And this is mirrored in very human terms in Jesus, who also renounces himself in order to reveal who he is and to authenticate his teaching. And that's what Lent is about. We're understanding what the Easter mysteries that we are going to enter into before too long, what that is about, what that means, what it means for us, what it means about how we live and how we interpret our experience. And one more thing that Simone Weil says about this process of things coming into being, let's say, or ourselves coming into fullness of being. I have come that you may have life, life in all its fullness, Jesus says. And this is what Simone Weil says about that. Think small. Small is beautiful. Every order which transcends another order, so anything that changes, can only be introduced into it under the form of something infinitely small. In other words, this process of transformation into being, where we can share in the being of God, and indeed we become divinized, that isn't some kind of great battle that we have to win. It's our entering into relationship with something infinitely small. And the infinitely small is, of course, also infinitely great. Now, this is not the MAGA philosophy. Make America bigger, better. Take over your neighbors, take over the world. The philosophy of force and violence, which has dominated our world and has dominated it for many millennia. It's not the philosophy of the guillotine of the French Revolution, or the Chinese and Russian genocides throughout history, throughout many revolutions. The great, the big, the powerful, the violent don't really bring in anything new. They're not really revolutions, they are repetitions of the same old illusion. That we can say, I am, equally in the way that God can. The Great Revolution is the one that started with the birth, teaching, life and death of Jesus. And that continues in us, in humanity, in ever new ways. It's the same revolution which we don't quite understand, but on the other hand, one that we can never get rid of. It's underway. And it continues in my life, in your life, and in our life together.
For some reason, right, I've got him, but no
How
son.
does Jesus compare this?
No.
What does he compare it to? Not to empires and trade wars and transactional politics, persecution of minority groups, scapegoating. No. He compares it to the mustard seed, the smallest of all seeds, which becomes a great tree. Or he compares it to the very small amount of yeast that you put into bread in order to make it rise. Something small and yet powerful, transformative. And everything in the Bible, I think, including those passages that we read and that frankly disgust us by their violence and hatred at times, everything in the Bible, and indeed everything in all the great mystical tradition, is redeemed and explained, as much as you can explain it, by the I am of the burning bush. God is. We start imaging God, imagining God, when we say God does this or God wants that. We create God in our own image. In meditation, we renounce all these images of God. I pray to God to rid me of God, Meister Eckhart said. Sounds shocking to certain kinds of religious people, but very liberating to others who are ready to explore the unknown. In meditation, we renounce all images of God, and that will mean eventually we renounce ourselves. We will decreate, and we will discover our own reality, which is not independent, not mine, and our true life, our true identity in the divine being. So this is the hard but liberating truth that we will hear Jesus reveal in the gospel today. So let's prepare to be knocked out of our complacency, to decreate a little bit, to create space, and to let go of our resistance to change and transformation, because we so often want to control the process. And we do that by entering into this time of worship, which is a time of listening, a liminal space where we let go of our usual anxieties and worries and distractions as far as we can. And we're not listening to our own preconceived ideas, but to the living word and to the great symbol of the bread and the wine and of our sharing in it. And that's what heals and opens our hearts so that we can truly listen. And we realize a little more in true worship that God doesn't want us to be good. God wants us to be. And the first reading from Exodus will be read by Anna Yong from Singapore, who is also part of the Academy.
A reading from the book of Exodus. Moses was looking after the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, priest of Midian. He led his flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the shape of a flame of fire, coming from the middle of a bush. Moses looked. There was the bush blazing, but it was not being burnt up. "I must go and look at this strange sight," Moses said, "and see why the bush is not burnt." Now the Lord saw him go forward to look, and God called to him from the middle of the bush, "Moses, Moses," he said. "Here I am," Moses answered. "Come no nearer," he said. "Take off your shoes,
for the place on which you stand is holy ground. I am the God of your fathers, he said, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this, Moses covered his face, afraid to look at God. And the Lord said, I have seen the miserable state of my people in Egypt. I have heard their appeal to be free of their slave drivers. Yes, I'm well aware of their sufferings. I mean to deliver them out of the hands of the Egyptians and bring them up out of that land to a land rich and broad, a land where milk and honey flow, the home of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Then Moses said to God, I am to go then to the sons of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. But if they ask me what his name is, what am I to tell them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. This, he added, is what you must say to the sons of Israel. I am has sent me to you. And God also said to Moses, you are to say to the sons of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name for all time. By this name I shall be invoked for all generations to come. The word of the Lord.